It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Ben Baranes, DMD. He's a general dentist practicing in Phoenix, Arizona. He was born and raised in Paris, France. So are you related to Pierre Fichard? Did you do the 23andMe to find out, are you his third cousin, or what are you with him?
I should.
When I lectured in Paris, I was so excited to see that museum, and it was closed for remodeling when I was there. I was so disappointed. At the age of 18, he decided to pursue his American dream and moved to California for his undergraduate study. A decade later, he still feels like it was the best decision he ever made. Dr. Baranes just had to reschedule his wedding because of COVID-19, and he hopes his wife, Courtney, won't change her mind until then. He graduated from the Arizona School of Dentistry and Oral Health in May 2019, which I drove by every day on the way to work. As a first-year dental student, he attended one of Dr. Howard Farran's lectures, and it completely changed the way he perceives dentistry. I apologize so much. Now you should have some empathy for my children. Coming out of dental school, like many new graduates, he struggled to find a good job and found himself in difficult situations with his sense of ethics was questioned. He is now eager to help dental students avoid the same mistakes he made by being able to identify red flags in their job search. He now works as an associate in a private practice where he's able to double the daily production in less than 1 year and enjoys complete trust and autonomy from his employer. He is actively looking to find the perfect dental practice while working on improving his skills with continuing education. So tell me about Courtney. So she's already your wife, but you planned a ceremony?
Yeah, so we got married at the court and everything, and we had the ceremony planned, and because of COVID, we unfortunately had to cancel it. So
don't you think the gods are trying to tell you something?
I know. That's what I told her. You can find better. That's what I told her.
So, one of the rarest behaviors ever is to leave your country and move to another country. It's an incredibly rare behavior. There's 8 billion humans, and I've read studies that only 1% do it, 1 out of 100. And they usually do it because for a job or for love, or they're running from the law is actually a quarter. So what made you want to leave beautiful Paris, France, and come to the United States?
Well, France is a wonderful country for vacation, but I believe that in terms of work ethics and being able to really like create your own business and be successful, I think America has opportunities that are nowhere else in the world. So I kind of grew up with that idea that America was a country where everything was possible. And 10 years after being here, I still feel like that is true.
So we all agree. We all love France. Every country does. It's the same species, the same problems. And what I fell in love with traveling is, of course, obviously, I love to see how dentists in different countries see the same data and do things differently. And it's been amazing. But even if you apply it to how they make a door or a bathroom or a window, I mean, I just love. That's the only reason I love architecture and all that kind of stuff like that, is just the variance. I'm just in awe of the human mind and the variance. But what were you specifically seeing as growing up in France, where you thought the United States was more free enterprise capitalism to start a business than France? Was it? What was it?
That's correct.
Was it
my
price?
My parents owned their own business. They owned a pharmacy in France, in Paris, and they had to work 60 over hours a week. And they always told me that they pay taxes about 7 months out of 12 of the year. So kind of grew up in that socialist system where everything is kind of taken out of your paycheck and where the government kind of hammers you if you do make it. So I kind of, that was not a model that worked for me.
Yeah. And it's I'm so old, I don't believe the jury's still out. I mean, they take all those taxes. I mean, you see it right now, like the people into green energy. I mean, they don't even blink at a carbon tax or whatever, because, I mean, that's stealing. I mean, they just go to the polls, and next thing you know, you got to give them more of your money. And every time I pay those taxes, I think I could have started a new division. I could have hired 2 more employees, and
Exactly.
I would have been a better steward of that capital. But these people, it's just amazing how if I broke into their house and stole a gallon of milk and their eggs, they'd call the police. But then they go to the polls and break into my bank account and steal half of it and just think that they're fine. I mean, it's crazy, crazy, crazy how people who have nothing on their resume think that they're going to be better stewards of capital than me, who made the capital. And then they talk about income inequality. Well, go move to Afghanistan. There's no income inequality there. You're all equally poor. And the other thing, like they talk about Jeff Bezos, he's got all this money. It's like, what do you think he does? Have a jacuzzi filled with cash and he just soaks in it? Or do you think he's doing AI and technology and satellites and rockets and all this stuff like that? And if you took all that money and gave it to Bernie Sanders, I mean, what would he do with it? Just increase payroll. The people paying taxes only get Social Security, but all the government people, they get a government pension and Social Security. And then you look at the median average hourly wage and salary of the people paying taxes versus the government. They're just an elite class of thugs that steal and waste your money.
I couldn't agree more.
But congratulations on just picking up and moving. My gosh, that is just crazy. Of course, you did go to California and you were 18, so you probably thought there were a lot of scantily clad girls running around on the beach, right? Was that part of the feeling?
That was a big motivation.
So, I just got a text and an email yesterday from a buddy dentist I know out here who I've known since he was 1 year old, and he's looking for a job. And what's it like if you got out of school right now? The thing that concerns me is, we've had Dental Town since 1999 with free classified ads, and there's always been about 1,000 dental practices for sale and about 5,000 jobs looking for an associate. And now it's 2,000 dentists selling their practice and only 1,000 jobs, and they're all DSOs. So it's obviously a very poor time to be looking for a job as a dentist. What are you seeing in the market right here in our backyard in Phoenix?
I would agree with that. I think COVID-19 makes things even worse for the new class of 2020. I think that, unfortunately, if you go on Indeed, if you go on those major websites, all you're going to find is DSOs looking for new grads. That is it. So pretty much you have to make your own connections. And that's something that we struggle with as dental students.
So you just said Indeed.com. Is that the kind of the go-to place that you'd recommend dentists looking for a job?
No, I'm just saying that the main ones to look at jobs are going to be Indeed, Monster, and it's going to be your site, Dental Town as well, which has a lot of great ads. What I would recommend for the dental students coming out of school is to make connections. So let's say you have somebody that's trying to sell you disability insurance or lab rep, like use them, ask them if they know anyone that's looking for a job. There are people that are trying to sell you something. So try to take advantage of it. That's how I found my jobs.
It's one of the most powerful things to try to teach a young child that, you're a species. There's 8 billion of them, and you have to work together against, exploding stars and novas and viruses. That's the thing I love the most about COVID-19 is, World War II, we're fighting other humans. And, that's just so ugly. I love the fact that we're fighting another species, a virus. And it should, the forces add up. It should be pulling us together. But you got to tell these kids in life, we're a social animal, and it's not what you know. You don't live on an island. You're trapped on a rock. Nobody can get off. It's already gone around the sun 5 billion times, and it's going to go around 5 billion more. And despite anything Elon Musk says, you're never going to live on Mars. If you wanted to live on, well, it's just crazy. And the reason they think they're going to live on Mars is because they tell everybody the temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. If we only did temperatures in Kelvin, you would realize that living on Antarctica would be like living in Hawaii compared to the dark side of the moon or Mars. I mean, how are you going to spend the night at 5 degrees above absolute Kelvin? And if that's a great idea with 8 billion people, why isn't there 1 million people living on Antarctica? There's only 4,000 people on Antarctica, and they're all government research people. I mean, you'd have to be out of your mind to leave Earth and go live on some planet that has 5-degree Kelvin nights. It reminds me of that scene in Star Wars where you had to lance open that camel or something and sleep inside of it. What animal was that?
To get warm.
A tauntaun? I mean, yeah. Go to Mars and take a few extra tauntauns and a lightsaber with you. So my gosh, but you're having luck on Indeed.com, or just for resources.
No,
Indeed.com.
No, Indeed.com is good only if you want to find DSOs. I don't think it's a good resource for a private practice job.
Right. So for private practice, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you got to network.
You know. That's correct.
I complained to dentists since day one that Delta Dental of Arizona gives them a couple $100,000 a year cash, and they can't even name the CEO or the director. They've never met him. They never had. They just don't network. And where I came from in my dad's Sonic Drive-In restaurant chain, the whole value chain works together. The guy that makes the buns and the meat, and they all work together, and everybody in the value chain is working to try to drive down costs, but grow the whole market. The guy selling you hamburgers, selling it to competitors and everybody around you, but you all work together to grow the market. Like, so many dentists think that the competition is the dentist across the street when it's really a big screen TV and a trip to Disneyland. And just, anything to grow your business. So how would you recommend networking?
So like I said, I would use firstly the people that are trying to sell you something. So like insurance agents and lab reps, I think are wonderful resources. The third thing you could do is contact some specialists in your area. So first off, you'll know who to refer to when you're out of school, and chances are they know a dentist that's looking to cut back or bring in an associate.
Yeah. And so how is the job market? You got out 1 year ago. This is
yes.
So you've been out what since May of
been out
2019.
2019. So I've worked in 4 different jobs. I worked in 2 different private practices, 2 different DSOs. So I kind of have I can tell the difference from my own experience. So what I think is very important is something that you always bring up in your podcast and that I really like is like, there's a lot of things to learn from DSOs. Like I work there, and the way they run their businesses, those guys are MBAs, they're not DMPs. Like they just get it. So I think there's just so much to learn from them. The way they run their systems and their staff is just so on point.
Yeah, it's having a mentality that the glass is half full, it's not half empty. I mean, they'll go work someplace for a year and they'll say, "Oh, it was horrible," and I'll say, "Well, that DSO owns 25 dental offices. How could you not learn anything from somebody who has 25? If you look at a guy with 25 dental offices and you have none, and you don't think there's anything to learn from that person, it's just your attitude determines your altitude and your aptitude. So, but this is a common thing I see with young graduates, where working somewhere else isn't this great thing, because if they're 5 years out of school, they've had at least 5 jobs. And you're a very aggressive guy. I mean, you changed countries. You had 4 jobs in a year. So what was it basically? Was it kind of like dating? Like you went on a date and you said never, and just, you were done. You didn't need 5 more dates to confirm what you knew? Yeah.
So the first DSO that I worked at, like I said, I get a lot of positive from it, but there's certain things that happened that were just not ethical, and I wasn't comfortable staying there. So I enjoyed the systems they put in place. I got to see over 40 patients a day, and I got to work with people that didn't have enough money to maybe see the specialist. So I really took advantage of that and kind of pushed my skills. That being said, when you have a manager that tries to tell you that your pro fees should be SRPs, tries to tell you that it's okay to put braces on a guy that has severe perio, and just certain things that you just can't do as a doctor. So.
And that is why it's these dentists, you got to hold the line that you have to be a dentist to own a dental office. And, that's what the laws of the 50 states found. And I understand how you can argue that that's just, self-serving. Dentists are self-serving. They want to be the judge, jury, and the executioner. But I don't see it in other free enterprise things. Like when you saw, like when Henry Ford was actually an engineer and the entire plant was made in one place, they were just higher quality. They were the best cars at the time. But when they start outsourcing to 30,000 different parts made all over, the world, and they just assemble cars, they're just assembling crap. It scares me when I'm getting this old, and I got 6 grandkids. My little Jasper just turned 2 yesterday. I don't want him to grow up in a world where all the dental offices are owned by bankers and insurance companies in Wall Street, because then where's my little Jasper going to go if he needs a dentist?
That's true. That is scary. Yeah, it's scary, and they have offices where they give some dental students out of school just 3 patients, and they tell them, hey, you got to make $3,000 out of those 3 patients. I don't care if they need nothing. You got to make $3,000 today, and it's just not a viable model.
And what is the go-to, like if I only get 3 patients a day and I got to do $3,000, what's the low-hanging fruit go-to that they try to make that money? What are the most common things or tactics that they would try to get you to make $3,000 on 3 patients?
Well, I think they're very big on scaring the patient. Okay, so kind of coming in the room kind of strong and letting them know, hey, your mouth is full of disease. Like there's a lot of things that are going on, and it's kind of a scare tactic, kind of letting them know there's an urgency to their care, which can be good in certain situations. I mean, obviously, some patients would rather buy a new iPhone than get a crown. I understand that, but at the same time, like if somebody has an old MOD and it looks great, it doesn't need a crown. I mean, you can't convince me that every MOD that's been there for over 5 years needs to be crowned. That is just not. And
then dentists, they have a lot to blame in this too, because you show them data and they're always they just deny it. Like I mean, look at an amalgam. I mean, it's metal. You compare that to a composite. It's plastic. Does anybody in the kitchen think that the metal fork in their kitchen drawer is stronger and going to last? I mean, weaker and going to last a shorter period of time than the plastic fork that they got in their Happy Meal? I mean, it's at KFC. I mean, it's not going to happen. And in fact, I love to play with patients the most, because they always say, well, if they bring up the word natural, they go, oh, these filling materials, I don't want any like artificial or chemicals, or do you have anything like natural? And I go, do I got anything natural? Oh my gosh. We have silver fillings. I mean, that is made in a collapsing star. And, the stars collapse, they form these heavy elements of gold and silver, and I got a filling that will be all natural elements made in an exploding supernova. And my gosh, it'll probably last 38 and a half years. And you're right. I don't think we should do one made of those tooth-colored plastic that's made in a chemical laboratory. I've been there. They just order barrels of chemicals and mix it all up. So you're ready to have an all-natural silver filling? I'm like, no, I'm actually psychotic, and I just thought I was supposed to say that to check off my box. It's like, my gosh, So they're aggressive treatment planners, it sounds like. I mean, they go in there to present. Now, does the dentist present the treatment, or do they bring in someone up front to present the treatment?
They'll bring a manager as well. I was very big on working on my case presentation skills, so I also presented myself. But yeah, they do have somebody come in that has a business background to present.
Well, one thing I want for my 6 grandkids is, if I'm not here, if they got 4 cavities and they're $250 a piece and it's $1,000 cash and they should just pay for it with their own money, you shouldn't need a government subsidy or a subsidy from your employer. And I know my grandkids are going to spend $1,000 on the iPhone. So true, if my grandkid had 1 cavity and I sent him to 4 dentists and only 1 dentist was able to get him to part with $250 to get a filling, I have to say that dentist is the best one. The 3 that couldn't convince him to get treatment, have failed their patient. because they don't understand. It's not only what you know, but who you know. As a dentist, it's only what you know, but what you can transfer to the patient.
That is true.
So they act on it, but the concern is that someone would be using that tactic to sell something they didn't need.
That's correct.
So what did you learn the most about treatment plan presentation? To take it serious?
Well, treatment plan presentation, the most important thing is to connect with the patient. That's the number one thing. Like I would see how that manager was walking and she would first talk about their nails, their shoes. They weren't talking about dentistry for the first 5 minutes. It's all about people connection. And then the second thing is making them see value. Like you said, they would rather spend money on an iPhone than a crown. So you have to make them see value.
So connect with the patient and then show value. Right.
People, time, and money, right?
Yeah, people, time, and money. It's just everything. What are you seeing? We're both in Phoenix right now. You're actually are you in Phoenix right now?
I'm in Phoenix right now.
Okay, so we're both in the city of Phoenix. What are you seeing in the job market here? Is it just DSOs? You said on Indeed.com for dentistry, it was just DSOs?
For new grads, yes. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to get a job in a private practice for a new grad.
I know.
If you see those private practices job that you'll see, some of them will tell 3 years minimum. I even had some that said 10 years minimum on Indeed, and it's a little intimidating for a new grad. But
well, here's what works. Then again, we're talking Phoenix, Arizona. We live in Phoenix. I don't know what it's like to practice in Paris, France, or Montreal. So obviously you're fluent in French. So is Quebec your new best? Is Montreal your new best French fix? If you they
have a pretty different accent. I will tell you that.
Really? Is it a pretty big?
Quebec, yes, they do.
Or when you grew up, were you ever sad that Napoleon sold the Louisiana Purchase to the United States?
Sad. I would have never had to learn English. We'd be speaking French right now. So.
And it's really weird because the French quarters and Montreal and Paris, the only thing they have in common is a language. But those are three pretty diverse cultures, aren't they?
That is true. That is true.
But the French, do you think they know how to relax and have fun more than say Germans or British?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. They're not as hard of workers, and they know how to enjoy themselves a little more. I would agree with that.
And I'm going to say this, and I know I shouldn't say this, so I should just shut up and not say it. But I mean, if you put any 60-year-old French lady, and she's sitting in between a 60-year-old German and British lady, I mean, the French lady's still rocking it, has the attitude. She's still gorgeous and beautiful and rocking it, and the other two look like they're bricklayers. I mean, they're just a fun people. But
I'll see if I have an auntie I can introduce you to, Howard.
No. I've after when you spend $3.8 million on your acts, you lose interest in the whole genre.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd rather date my Merrill Lynch account. So when how many DSOs actually are, if they went to Indeed.com or Monster Job, like how many DSOs are there? Because DSOs is kind of a weird word because everybody thinks that means Fontana's Aspen or Workman's Heartland or Thorne's Pacific Dental Care, but the majority of DSOs aren't household names. They're just like 3 to 8 offices or something like that. When you say that mostly the DSOs are hiring, are you talking about the big brands or in Phoenix? Or are you talking about little no names?
The big brands, yes.
The big brands?
The big brand. One of them is especially Pacific Dental. When I interviewed for them last year, they had 80 offices, I think, around, and they told me they wanted to double the number in the next few years. So I think they're very big on the market right now.
And that's they had Pacific Dental has 80 dental offices in the state of Arizona or the Phoenix Metro.
I'm not exactly sure about that number, but when I interviewed last year, they mentioned they were around 80 to 100, and they wanted to be above 150. So they're growing quite a bit, and that's something I wanted to talk about for students. It's kind of it kind of depends on where you want to take your career. Like a company like PDS, I mean, I have colleagues that work with them and don't have any problems. But for me, being a general dentist who can only do crowns and fillings is not something I'm interested in. So that's just I mean, if you work for them for 3 years and you've never done a root canal and extraction, it's going to be tough for you to jump ship to a different practice. So, and I think they kind of play that role to kind of lock you in their system where all you can do is drill and fill, and then they put you on that path to ownership where you really only own 45% of your office. Are you really an owner when you own 45% of your office? That's a real question. So,
well, it's not a math question. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not sure about the cosine, the tangent, but if someone owns 55% and you own 45%, you're a minority owner, and you have you have nothing. And having a bunch of people retire as patients for 33 years, I can't tell you how many stories they told me that, well, I thought when I retired, I bought into the company and I owned 3% of this big company that I work for. And then, of course, the two brothers owned, 90%. And I thought it would be worth this, but the only person I can really cash out with is these two guys. And they only said they'd give me this much money. And it was a very kind of an ugly thing. But yeah, so they want these minority owners for why? Is it to keep them lifers at the company, or is it a legal deal where they need owners?
I think there's two things. One, like you said, they want to keep them kind of locked in for a long time. And another thing I've been seeing is kind of compared to your generation and mine, is I think there's a change of mentality in a lot of dentists. So when I was a first-year student, they asked the class, like, hey, like, what is the most important to you in your career? And I thought some would say ownership or implant. And a lot of my classmates answered free time, hobbies. And so a lot of people get out of dental school and they're more worried about how much paid vacation they're going to have instead of what kind of procedures they'll be able to do. And I identify more to older dentists like you, because I don't really understand how you get out of school with $400,000 or $500,000 in loan and you're mostly worried about your next vacation to take. Like, it's not something I fully understand.
So so what you're referring to is the what everyone's seeing is the psychographics always change with each generation. And you see it in Japan. Like when I was over there in Japan in a few different cities, it was amazing how many of the dentists told me that they grew up and it was so competitive to in grammar school to get in the best high school, and so competitive in high school to get in the best college, and then out of college to get the best job at Honda or Toyota or whatever, and then they work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and come home and drink sake straight from the bottle at night, and then they die of a heart attack at 65. And so what did the next generation did? Well, number one, they dropped to under one kid per family. I mean, they're not, you need 2.3 kids per family to just keep the herd the same level, and they're at 0.9. Every morning in Japan, they have less people than the night before. So those young kids in dental school are saying, I actually really don't want to be like Howard and spend my life doing that. I want to camp and fish and crochet, whatever they want to do. So do you think what percent of the psychographics of the dental school at AT Still have the Milton Friedman capitalism thoughts that you and I have versus, I just want to have a nice ride,
I would say it's like 1/3 of your mentality, I would say.
So 1/3, one free enterprise, one ownership, one ownership, and 2/3 just want a job, want a nice job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other changes and now? Some people suggest that maybe that's because it went from an all-male profession, 100 years ago, to now half the class is women. Are in that 1/3 ownership, is that 50-50 men, women, or is there does that play into that or not really?
I mean, one of the first people in my class to buy practice is a female. So hi to Dr. Faye Barrero in San Diego. So I don't know if that's true. So,
yeah, and I don't think it's true. When I look at my class of 1987, there were 20 women in there, and the average of those 20 women bigger, better practices, hands down. I mean, there were so many of them that walked out of that school, did smart demographics. They're like, Kansas City has a dental school downtown. Why the hell would I stay here? And they drive like less than an hour out of town. And they would they'd find some town with 5,000 people. There was no one there, and they'd be doing, $1 million out of the gate, and drove it all the way up to 2 and 3. And now that I'm 58, a lot of them are already completely retired. They're done. But it's funny. It's funny if you're thinking about retiring. These types of people, I don't think they make very good retirees, because a couple of them had completely sold out, moved to a different city, completely retired, and then actually went and got a job as an associate with someone else just because, they're dentists. They want to do some dentistry. But back to what you said about the endo and the oral surgery and the not hiring new grads out. Here's what I got to tell the new grads. I mean, I'm not your friend if I sugarcoat it and tell you what you want to hear. You know what? If I really love you and respect you and we're all sovereign colleagues, I got to tell you the god-awful, ugly truth. And that is, when you come out of school and you go work someplace and you do 10 molar root canals your first year, and of course you had 4 jobs in a year, and everyone I meet, every year they've been out, they've had a different job. So you meet any dentist 5 years out of school that doesn't own their own practice, they've had 5 different jobs. But when they leave, a lot of those root canals are going to fail and have to be sent to an endodontist to be retreated, and and the office warranties that and all that. Implants has proven to be, it's absolutely mathematically proven that you don't make any money having a young associate placing implants until they've placed, well over 100 or 200 or 300. So they come out of school, they take some course, they start placing some implants, and then they leave and they go get another job in another city, another state, and then you got to, send them to your specialist to have them redone. And so if you do 5 implant cases and say the office has 65% overhead, say you pay the dentist 25%, say you're netting 15% from having capital employed in a dental office, which is a great return considering the S&P 500 only has a 5% profit margin for the Russell 5000. Well, when you have to go pay money to have this case redone, it costs the profits of 4 other cases. So that is why they want endodontists to come in the place and do all the molar endos. And they want a periodontist or an oral surgeon to come in and place all the implants. So economically, that's what works. And even religiously, I mean, treat other people like you want to be treated. If I had to have a vasectomy, I wouldn't want it to be done by Stevie Wonder, who's never done it before. If I got a guy over here who's done 10,000 of them, you know what I mean? I'd want him to have some experience. And then the insurance companies are complicit in this too. I don't know. I could assume why. I'd prefer they just come on the show and tell me, but they don't have the balls to do that. They pay the endodontist more, and I always wonder if it's because they're looking at the 5-year mortality rate of a root canal, where I've seen data where if general dentists do 100 molars in 5 years, 10% are extracted, whereas if an endodontist does it, 5 are extracted. So if they have twice the success rate or half the failure rate, that might be why it's to their advantage to pay endo specialists more money. So if I have an associate in my office, same as me when I work, I pay myself 25% of production, because that's the true value of an associate dentist in my marketplace, which is very separate than the 15% net income profit from having capital employed in today's dental. So don't peanut butter and jelly how much money you make based on adding this, how much money I made being a dentist in this country versus this is how much money I had from having capital employed in a dental office. Because you got to think like that, because someday you might have a different alternative with that money. You might sit there and think this 16-unit complex is a better bet than an additional dental office. So so not wanting to hire kids, I mean, not wanting them to do specialty work. The market is totally driving towards specialists doing that, but it looks like it's an economically good thing for the owners. So where are you at on your journey? You're only 1 year and 3 months out of school. How long do you think you'll work for someone else until the journey says that you want your name on the door?
Probably another year or two. Probably. I'm starting to look at practices right now. But just to go back on what you said about root canals and endo and the failure, you did mention that the only thing you don't have to sell is a root canal. And that kind of stuck with me because I sucked at endo in dental school. And I really invite dental students to kind of push themselves to really find a mentor. I work with somebody that was very good at root canals, and he kind of shadowed me and showed me how to do molar endo. And I went from like ghetto perch at 2 millimeter at the apex to like molar endo in less than an hour now. So really, really kind of push yourself because it's a huge practice builder. So that's something I would say to new grads.
Well, who's mentoring you? Is it a specialist or is it a general dentist? Who's mentoring you on
I had a general dentist, Dr. Torgerson, mentor me for endo, and he had been practicing for over 5 years, and I could see his cases look beautiful. So I asked him for help. So I would highly suggest new grads to push themselves, not just do what you're comfortable with. Try to do a little bit more. The other thing, so I do want to look for practice in about 2 years. The other thing I would tell new grads is to kind of be ready for a change of mentality from dental school to a regular practice. What can really help you guys to get there? I would say this book here changed my life. $10,000 a Day Dentist by Dr. Bill Williams.
Oh, yeah.
This
We've had him on the show.
And this guy too, Uncomplicated Business. I think every new dental grad should read these two books. I really, really suggest it. Why is that? It's because when you're in dental school, you're in a model where you can only do quadrant dentistry, you don't do same-day dentistry, and you don't do comprehensive. And I think these are the 3 pillars to be a successful new grad. Is do same day, forget about quadrant dentistry, and try to do everything. So
that is a lesson that it takes them 10 years to figure out, and it's funny all the crazy ways dentists get trapped in this. Number one is someone comes in and they say, oh, you need a root canal, but we don't have time because we gotta get you out of this chair because we have another patient scheduled in 15 minutes, so we gotta get you out of here and flip the chair. So they do all that, and then the next patient doesn't show up. And it's like, and then I look at the overhead. Okay, so the overhead, you charge $1,000 for a crown, but the signing up for a volume discount PPO, you agreed to do a volume of patients for $650. So you've already, so you already got 35% overhead just on your fee reduction, and then you got to pay, staff 25%, labor 10%, supplies 5%, whatever, and And I'm like, well, where's this operatory cost? I don't even see it on your statement of cash flow. I mean, this person was here, they wanted treatment, and you got them out of the room because the constraint was an operatory, and I'm looking at your statement of cash flow, and I don't see this constraint showing up on the statement of cash flow. And then you look at the guys who net the most money, they don't all have an emergency room. They usually might even have 2, especially if they're an endodontist or an oral surgeon, because that oral surgeon and those endodontists, it's the 80-20 rule. It's a Pareto effect. I mean, the Italian economist who figured out in Italy, your neighbor growing up, that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And he started looking, and everywhere he looked, he kept finding this 80-20 rule. And my gosh, so the specialists, they'll say, well, about 25 guys refer to me, but it's like 7 guys that send me everything. And like an endodontist, like, these 7 guys give me everything, great molars, these guys just give me a retreat, a broken file, something failed, and I'm going to spend so much longer on that. I don't even know if it's profitable, and it's a pain in the butt. When that guy calls and says, hey, Ben, can you do me a favor? I got this patient here. Is there any way you can see her today? Well, he's not going to tell one of his 7 no, because you might call another endodontist and he never sees you again. You know what I mean? So those specialists, man, they have 2. And by emergency room, when you tell me things like, well, we have an emergency room, it's room 4. Okay, well, I'm looking at the schedule in room 4 right now, and there's 3 people scheduled in it today, 1 yesterday, 2 tomorrow. An emergency room is no one's ever intentionally scheduled there. It's for walk-ins, emergencies. It's so the person answering the phone can say, well, can you come down right now? And then so and by the way, when they tell me they don't have room for another operatory, I can find the room every single time. And they say, well, dude, this is my private office. I say, well, Superman worked out of a phone booth. I don't know why you need all this crap. And then the same day, of course they want it. It's all impulsive. I mean, who could read any economic journals and not know that people are impulsive? They buy it on a whim. They have too many cocktails on Friday night, and the next thing you know, they're down buying a new car. And, I'll never forget one time I walked into, I was pretty impressed, but they must have couldn't tell I was Irish. But anyway, it was in Chicago on that Miracle Mile, or it's called something like that, where the ADA is.
Right.
Yeah, I walked
the
in
shops
there.
are.
I walked in there, and I saw some cool shirt in the window. The first thing the guy asked me, says, what do you drink? Beer, wine, vodka? And I said, vodka on ice. And he made me a double vodka on ice. And I thought, oh, my God, this guy's a casino. He's trying to get, Howie all liquored up and drop 1,000. I mean, I was impressed by how smart these guys were playing. So what else do you think these young kids need to know?
I think another thing is that has nothing to do with dentistry is kind of focus on your finances as well. I mean, I see a lot of my classmates got out of school and they went straight to the Tesla, the Lexus dealership. I mean, it's great that you became a doctor, but I really think things are just starting right now. You have $500,000 in debt. You have to be smart about what you do. You can't just think because you have doctor next to your name that you deserve to drive a BMW. It is not true. So.
Well, why? Well, first of all, I want to ask you this: do you think not living below your means is special to dentistry, physicians, and lawyers more than the average person, or do you think it goes across the board?
I would say we're probably worse than other people because we've been in school for so long with no money that once we finally get a nice paycheck, we're a little.
Yeah, and
it's
they don't have a dental office budget between the end of the year, between Christmas and New Year's and all that time off. You're trying to write your end of year letter, evaluate the goals of last year, trying to set the goals and budgets and plans for next year, and 90% of dentists don't do that for their business or their personal life. And they just always live above their means, and they don't realize how stressful that's going to be.
Exactly.
And even in our backyard here, there's so many kids that graduate that they could go back and live with their parents. And I've sat in front rooms where I've seen it offered, and because they're thinking about, I want to go to Scottsdale and go to a club and drag some person back to my man cave and all this stuff. And then the next thing you know, their overhead's up. They got a nice car, they got a nice house, they got a nice this, and they don't even own any business assets that are making money, like a savings account. Where, why do we have the Rockefeller Center? Because he knew every dollar he put in the bank, it would pay him a nickel until the end of time. And so the guy's been dead a century, and those nickels all add up to billions of dollars a year, funding all these research. And the thing that scares me the most about dentists is even when they're my age, you know how many dentists I know at my age that are still paying a nickel, a dollar interest to other people for the use of their money, instead of earning a nickel on a dollar for interest, to where you basically, so here's the deal. So if you can set your live below your means, and you can get it down to where I can live off $1 a year, and then you sit there and you buy 20 bonds for $1 each that each pay you a nickel a year, as soon as your nickels add up to your living cost, you're done. You're absolutely done. But if you keep raising your living cost and you keep raising your income and you keep using other people's money, you never cross the chasm. And here's something that's brutally true. Whenever I see an American dentist that quickly gets from paying for the use of other people's money today versus earning money as interest on my own money saved today, they're never born in the United States. They're always from Africa, Asia. They came somewhere else. So the guy like you who analyzed, 208 countries, 8 billion people, and said, I'm moving my chess piece over here. My gosh, you guys always do it fast. I mean, they come out of UAP $400,000 in debt, and if they were born in Vietnam, 4 years later, their student loans are paid off, and they're saving cash. And I say, well, how much money did you spend on a house? And you know what they say? Dude, I live in my office. I don't even have a car, and this is my office number, and all I can't wait every day is to all the Americans clock out at 5 o'clock and go home and leave me with San Francisco, who's going to keep grinding and breaking teeth, and they're going to come in here with a broken tooth, and I'm going to do a $2,500 root canal buildup and CEREC CAD-CAM crown, and they're going to pay for it on their visa before I start. I mean, it's just a whole nother world.
You're right. You're right. And those 50,000 that you're putting in a new car is about what you need to put down on your next practice. So don't forget that.
So now, where did you learn that? Did your parents live below their means?
So like I said, my parents work 60 hours a week. So they're really hard workers. I think they're the only two people that work this hard in France. I think it's just them two. So they kind of taught me that, just you. And it's not about what you make, it's really about what you keep, right? So it's kind of what you say. If you really look at numbers in retirement, I think school teachers have a higher percentage of millionaires at retirement than dentists do. And I think that's all you got to say. I mean, so it's all about how disciplined you are.
And that was written by 2 PhDs, and it was called The Millionaires Next Door. And this guy could not believe it, how, and it goes back to what we talked about, psychographics. When you're a teacher, well, you're not going to walk in a bar and say, I'm a teacher, and everybody's going to think, you got a Ferrari and a big house. They think, well, you're a teacher. On Labor Day, you just charcoal hamburgers and hot dogs and drink a beer. And teachers just live below their means. And then they start saving. I'll give you another one. My uncle, he only had one job. And he got a job at Mobil Oil when he was like 16 years old. And when he filled out a form, it just had a little checkbox that says, do you want us to withhold 3% of your money for your retirement account? And it just came down to he's a 16-year-old kid in Parsons, Kansas, and he just thought, well, that sounds like a smart idea. So he checked that box. Next thing you know, he's 65 and has millions of dollars. But he never saw the money. It was withheld. He never thought about it. He never looked at it. And he just kept on working his garden. And when it was time to retire, they're like, it's just amazing how compounded interest works. I mean, even Albert Einstein said it was the eighth one. What do you say? It was the eighth wonder of the universe, compounded interest. But it doesn't matter about compounded interest, because I know what my guy's doing. He's trying to invest to hit a home run in the stock market, while he's still paying out interest, on debt to other people's money forever and ever and ever. I want to say another thing about that. The young kid starts with one-tooth dentistry. And then, 5 years later, he starts thinking, well, hell, if I have the whole quadrant numb, I might as well do both fillings, the whole quadrant's numb. But but it takes them a long time. They say, well, I can't do the whole mouth. And I'm like, why? And they go, well, you can't numb up both sides. I'm like, okay, well, 2 doors down is an oral surgeon, and he numbs up all 4 quadrants 8 times a day, 5 days a week for 40 years. And who would want to have 3 visits to have something done? They're in your office. They're here. Same day dentistry is the main mantra of dentistry. There's 8 billion people, and they walked in your office. Pay attention to that person. And you got to kick them out because you don't have a chair. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean.
And they haven't been in for 10 years. What makes you think they're going to show up for their 6-month recall? I mean, you have them now. Just the second they walk out the door, life gets in their way, and you lost them. So.
And then the great advantage I have growing up, basically, poverty, trailer trash, in Kansas for 10 years is I couldn't believe, it's not so bad now, but when I got out in 87, so many of the dentists, they didn't like those people. They're like, well, those people don't take care of their teeth. They hadn't been to dentist in 5 years, and then he calls me up and wants to be seen today. who is this idiot? I mean, I'm over here treating Mrs. Wimpleton, and she comes in every 3 months for 40 years. And I say, well, have you done any dentistry on her every 3 months in 40 years? No. I just do a $65 cleaning while I pay my hygienist $40 an hour, and an overhead situation is $65, and I love her. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you love her because I don't want to see her again. I want to see that trailer trash guy that he's a long hauler. One of the best patients I ever had in my life. He runs cargo from LA to Singapore. That's all he's done. He's worked on one cargo boat back and forth. Never has to walk to my office one day. So I can't believe this, but I got 5 days off. He goes, my teeth are, they're killing me out there. I'm in the middle of the damn Pacific Ocean, trying to pick out and everything. Oh my God. Not only did I set him down and do his whole mouth, my assistants were looking at patients that we knew they came in a long time, and they just pick up the phone and say, I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid if you came down here, Howie's going to be running late because we got this big case, this problem. He's a toothache guy. He works on a boat. And they're all like, oh, no worries. I'll reschedule. I'll come in Friday or whatever. And we just went to town on him. I mean, it was just and he was so grateful. And I mean, it was just fantastic. But I mean, right. Same day dentistry. Don't judge your patient. I mean, why do I care? I remember getting the lecture. Actually, I still remember his name. His name was the oral surgeon, Dr. Brett Ferguson, in Kansas City. And I said to him in the oral surgery, I said, well, do you think that guy was in a fight, or do you think he caused it? Or he goes, it's none of your business. We're dentists. We have a problem here. We're going to fix the problem. All that other crap is not in here. We got a guy. He's been busted up, and we're going to go help him. And we're not here to find out who said what or made a joke about your mom. I mean, we're dentists. And I just think it's gross when you look at the specialties, and one of them is dental public health, when you still have people out there saying that there's A patients, B patients, C patients, and D patients, and you only want to work on the A patients. I mean, isn't that kind of nationalism, racism, religious, and that kind of everything that's wrong with the world all wrapped up into one?
No, you're right. And even in dental school, when you think most of your patients are very low income, I had this lady that struggled with a drug addiction, came in, didn't even have a car, had like holes in her pants, and I had presented her with all-in-4 cases. And my instructor was like, you're crazy, you're wasting your time. And guess what? Her brother called the school and wired $25,000. So you can never assume anything. So.
Yeah, and when I was growing up, I was always amazed at how, like, in Wichita, like, the richest person in town was obviously Dan Carney, the founder of Pizza Hut, and another one was that I'd heard a lot of people had met from Arkansas down the river, Sam Walton. But you would look at these guys, and you look at their clothes, and you'd look at what they're driving, and you just would have thought it was just the normal old man that lived down the street. You never would have thought that guy owns several thousand Pizza Huts or Walmarts. I mean, oh my gosh. In fact, in Scottsdale, the big joke is fake it till you make it. And if you go to Scottsdale and you see 5 BMWs driving down the street, all 5 of them are leased or own, or 5-year payments or 6-year payments. But if you drive out to Chandler, Arizona suburb, or Glendale, or God forbid Peoria, and you see somebody with a BMW, they bought it in cash. I mean, that's just a different mindset. I mean, I basically dress like a homeless person, but that's basically, I'm just trying to dress like my dad. I mean, my gosh. So, what are the main DSOs hiring in Phoenix, Arizona? I mean, I know we have a lot of Pacific Dentals. We have a lot of Heartland Dentals. Which one's the bigger? Is there more Pacifics or Heartland?
Aspen.
Yeah.
Aspen is one, and then, sorry, go ahead.
Have you gone to Aspen's new call center?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Talk about, it's just like leaving America and going to the Max Planck's Institute to get a lesson on, physics. I mean, They won't hire anybody with dental experience because it's harder for them to untrain you than to train them. They have a guy working the floor, and they're in pods, and they can convert. If you call Aspen Dental, 2 out of 3 people are going to hang up the phone and go to the dental office, whereas in dentistry, only 1 out of 3 is going to convert. So they double the conversion rate. And it's a huge building, and I just went down there, and and you're a nice guy, and you tell them, you play humble and curious, and then they start showing off. And in fact, I met Bob Fontana down there one night, and holy moly! So these DSOs, I mean,
where is that? Sorry, where is the Aspen call center?
In Chandler.
In Chandler.
Yeah, let me see if.
I'll write it down. I might do the same thing.
I don't think.
Check it out.
I don't know if Bob wants me saying this on a podcast, but
okay.
Email me later, howard@dentaltown.com.
Gotcha.
But it's right there in Chandler. But oh my gosh, it was just so amazing, because we talked about earlier where the deal is, they haven't been to the dentist in years, so they're calling today. So same day, get them to come down now. But you don't have an operatory. Okay, that's great. And then when you ask me, how do you get rid of no-shows and cancellations? Like, well, you won't let anybody in the front door when they call, so why should you be mad when they don't show up? The other thing was bread and butter dentistry. You made a comment that you said that endo's the one thing you don't have to sell. I mean, they come in, they're hurting, they're in pain, they're begging you for treatment, and most of all the guys out there that I know doing $1 million a year collections, taking home $250,000 a year on an easy 4-day work week, they're all just doing bread and butter dentistry. They do about 7 root canals a month, and they do extractions. If you can't extract a tooth and you can't do a root canal, you're not a doctor, okay? You're some type of weird molar mechanic. Maybe you're into Botox or bleaching, bonding, and that's great. I love you, and I know there's beauty salons on every corner, but that's not doctor stuff. Doctor stuff gets you numb and gets you out of pain, and that's why it's one of the 12 specialties. And I don't know why you can't pull tooth. Now, granted, I got lucky when I was out of school. If I started the extraction and couldn't finish it, if it was during office hours, I would just put the patient in the car and drive him over to the oral surgeon, Don Gass, and bless his heart, he would, he's like, looking at this dumb kid, and he'd finish it. Of course, he'd charge and all that or whatever. And then if it was after hours when none of the specialists open, I had a dentist just 2 miles down 48th Street, Bob Sundberg. God dang, I love that. He'd always joke, he goes, yeah, Howard pulls out the top half of the tooth, and then I come in and pull the bottom half of the tooth. Shout out to Nick Gidwani. He helped me and saved me so many times. But that's what doctors do. I mean, an emergency room, you don't show up at an emergency room with a broken leg and have to hear, I'm sorry, Ben, we don't do legs. We just do eyelashes and ears. It's like, I thought this was a hospital. No, there's no real doctors here. We're going to have to send you somewhere else where there's a real doctor. So pull the tooth, and the worst case scenario is you're stuck. So that's the advantage of group practice. Someone can help unstuck you, but that's the power of networking. That's why when you learn implants, I don't want you to fly to Florida. You're in Phoenix. There's so many periodontists that will let you observe them over the shoulder. You need to learn it from that guy, because when you are in over your head, you need to know that guy. And, having some certificate on your wall that you're the diplomat who gives a crap. I took all the initials after my name, DDS, FAGD, MAGD, DI, COI, and I rolled them all up to BFD. I'd rather have a friend that can fix it right here, right now, than a bunch of initials after your name, and the patients don't know what any of that stuff means. And so if you can't do basic endo and basic oral surgery, along with your fillings, crowns, and stuff for kids and all that stuff, and that's what you need to focus on. But they always want to go buy a laser or a CAD cam, or they want to go spend a bunch of money they don't have, so of course they have to borrow it and give that person a nickel for every dollar they borrowed, and they never cross the finance deal. And it's just like, dude, why don't you just learn how to extract teeth, do endo, and fillings and crowns, and build a family practice? That's what all the DSOs are doing.
That's correct.
And I shouldn't say all the DSOs, because most all the DSOs, your Heartland Pacifics, they all love the neighborhoods with $60,000 median incomes and above. They like that suburban, rich dental crowd. Whereas what I love about Aspen is Bob Fontana, he wants to go where they ain't. And he saw they ain't in the poor areas. They're on Medicaid and a lot of removable. They don't have an in-house lab. So he took Medicaid, an in-house lab, and good demographics going with their, where they ain't, and he's got 1,000 offices later to show that that model works successful. So are you more inclined to go where they ain't and go to Eloy and practice on that type, that lower socioeconomic area, or are you more interested in the Scottsdale, Paradise Valley?
I live in Scottsdale. I have zero interest in working in Scottsdale. No, I'm more interested in bread and butter, blue collar, middle class America. I think is where it's at, for me at least.
And then you got to look at the contraction data. So, Lehman's Day was huge. So was the Y2K. The Y2K, when that market crashed in March of 2000, I got to see the after effects of dentistry, and then I got to see it again after Lehman's Day. But I always note that you take all the 50 to 80 failures at that 12-month period. It was two groups. It was the lifestyles of the rich and famous Scottsdale dental offices. And then it was the guy who just opened up his office and was banking on everything he had seen, that if for every time you mail out 100 flyers, one patient comes in. He had all these metrics of marketing and a marketing plan, and knew he could buy patient flow, which equals cash flow, and the marketing stops in a collapse because, you see it right now in America. The savings rate is going up faster than the stock market. People are, when the economy contracts, people think, well, this isn't the time to go on a vacation and buy a new car and spend all my money. I'm scared. So when you're scared, you want to keep all your gold coins in your little sack and hold them. And so the new guy that just opened, his marketing stopped working. And then the guy who's doing the lifestyles of the rich and famous, I would just say to them, I said, well, okay, so you're not going to do a bunch of veneers and all on fours and all this fancy Scottsdale stuff. Just go back to bread and butter practice. But he referred out 100% of his endo, 100% of his extractions. He hadn't done a denture in 10 years. He basically lost his entire skill set to have a family practice.
Exactly. And that's what I do. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with Phoenix. I work on 19th Avenue and Camelback. It's far from being the nicest area. And we do mostly access, and it's not uncommon for us of days we produce over 10K in production. So, it's you don't have to be in fancy Scottsdale to make money. I agree with that.
Yeah. And it depends on where you're from or how you're raised. But I was from Wichita, Kansas. I just relate to people from Phoenix and Guadalupe 100 times more. I never forget the first party I went to in Scottsdale, and I was meeting this dentist, and he was talking about this other dentist. I said, which one is he? And he told me it's the guy in the Burbank shoes. I'm like, you know the name of a pair of shoes? I'm like, where the hell are you from? I've never heard a person refer to the name of a pair of shoe before. I just don't fit in that crowd. And, it's
right.
just a different type of people. But I just think, like take Guadalupe. I'm across the street from the Guadalupe Indian Reservation. 5,000 legal Guadalupe Indians and about 25,000 undocumented people living there. And you'll get them in, and you'll do the extraction and PA, exam, extraction, get them out of pain. And then the next day, the lady's right back, and she's brought you some homemade tamales and gives you a hug. Exactly. God, I love those
exactly.
people. Yeah, and then on Scottsdale, you're just praying that they don't leave you a bad Yelp review because,
right.
something didn't go over with Untitled Bear, and
exactly. Yeah,
it just seems more low stress and more fun. Like you're talking about that lady, she was a drug addict. It just seems like a drug addict in your dental office is going to be probably the most humble patient you've had the day. And then the person that inherited grandpa's money is going to be the biggest pain in the ass of the day.
That's correct. That's correct.
So what, I can't believe we've already talked for an hour, but I don't want to let you go. What I should do is shut up because, Again, you just graduated from school 1 year ago, and I'm getting a lot of emails and texts from dentists right here in our town, and they're looking for a job. And so between the three that we were just talking about, between Heartland and Aspen and Pacific Dental, do you know of anybody that's hiring like today, straight out of school or no experience?
I think Aspen and PDS do that.
Aspen Dental is hiring today, and,
yes, and
PDS, Pacific Dental
That's
Services,
correct.
and but Heartland, you don't know if they're hiring.
Heartland, I don't think so. When I was looking at them a year ago, they were trying to expand Tucson instead of Phoenix. So I don't know if that's still accurate.
Yeah. Besides the big three, Pacific, Heartland, Aspen, any other DSOs out here that you see?
I've worked with MB2 and I've enjoyed it. So I think it's one of the better ones out there, in my opinion.
Have you seen? Okay, we'll talk about that. Why do you like MB2? And by the way, have you seen the thread on Dental Town asking him out and talking about MB2?
I have not. I'll go check it out right after this.
It's 8 pages long.
Oh wow.
And it just says, anyone heard of MB2 Dental? So tell me what you've heard.
I've worked with them. I filled in for a doctor and I was looking at a position. It's just a good way to be a lazy owner, it seems like. So it's still the part ownership, but it seems like they're a lot more hands off and they give a lot more power to their doctors. So the company is owned by a dentist itself too, and they don't really, I didn't get the vibe of unethical treatment or any of that. It seemed a lot more laid back and it just seemed like a better company to me.
So that does seem to be a big complaint, is when people are being told by office managers how to diagnose or streamline. Like when someone asked me, they said, well, our office manager says that 30% of all new patients should have periodontal disease. I said, well, go send her to some physician that says 100% of all new patients have a chlamydia infection, and see if that works for her. So they're not backseat driving you?
I don't have that much experience with them, but from the few times I've interacted with them, this seemed like they were better. Yeah.
And who is the owner of that? Is that Prashant?
Oh, let me check. It's MB2 owner. His name is Dr. Vo. Dr. Glenn Vo.
Glenn Vo?
Mm-hmm.
There he is. What a, okay. My brain's better. Founder and CEO of Nifty. If you said Nifty Thrifty Dentist, I would have got it. So anyway, so what other HMOs or DSOs are out here?
What are the DSOs out here? I think Comfort Dental is out as well. Comfort Dental.
Okay, well let's talk
right
about
now,
Comfort. Let's talk about Comfort Dental and tell me what you think of that, because that's Rick Kirschner as opposed to Rick Workman. Yeah, Glenn Vo was on episode 1254, but Rick Kirschner of Comfort Dental, that was he is an interesting franchise where they're all owner operators. I mean, what he does it basically, it's the McDonald's company. I mean, that's what it is. McDonald's, Ray Kroc built a real estate company, and that's what it is. And they'll prove that to you when if you get your MBA at ASU, which I recommend to anybody. They'll prove to you. What they would do is they would go buy the land, and it doesn't matter if it's expensive or not, because all the metrics will work. So they go into a small town in the current corner of First Street in Maine. Is a nice acre there. They'll buy the acre, say that costs $500,000. They'll build their box on top of it. That's another $500,000. And then they find Ben, who wants to be a franchisee. So they sell you that franchise for $1 million. So now they're free and clear. Then they sign you to an indefinite lease where every month you pay them 12% of every dollar that you collect. And every month on the 1st, McDonald's wakes up and collects about 38,000 rent checks, and the rest is just history. So what Rick Kirschner does, and that guy is a genius from word G, is he'll go buy, it's obviously a lot easier to buy an existing than to build. You don't need architects and all this planning and all this crazy stuff. And what he'll do is he'll go buy like he'd be driving around where you're at over there on 19th Avenue, and he'd find some old 2,000 square foot building. Maybe it was a State Farm insurance agent for 50 years. Maybe it was even a house on a 4-lane road. But he'll buy that building, and then he'll refurbish it. And so let's say he buys the land and building for $350,000. Let's say $400,000, and then he'll dump a couple $100,000 into it, making it a 6 operatory deal. And then when he's done, say he's got $600,000 into it, he'll sell it to you for $600,000. And then you're a Comfort Dental, and you gotta follow their franchise model of what they do and how they market and who they advertise. And it's just an incredibly successful deal. He doesn't have to manage anybody because he's not dealing with any employees. Every dentist he deals with is an owner. And to tell you how much money he has, I only have about 3 or 4 friends that when they want to have lunch with me, they send their jet to pick me up. And one was, he'll send his jet to pick me up and fly me back to Denver. My gosh, the founder of DenMap, Bob Ibsen, would do that. Hell, Jim Glidewell has 3 jets. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3. Okay. And so the Comfort Dental is just it's just a completely different league of its own. And for a lot of dentists that are thinking about taking on an associate, that's another business model. You can say, well, instead of taking on another associate, I think I saw a nice piece of real estate, and I'm going to go buy that, and I'm going to turn that into a dental office. I did that, and I sacrificed at the time my worst assistant, my worst hygienist, and my worst front desk, put them over there, hired a young kid, paid them 25% of what the office collected, and after 2 years had enough data that I could go down to, at the time it was called the Arizona Bank, went and showed it to Darlene Winger, said, is she qualified for an SBA loan? And she said, hell yeah. So then she did all the paperwork, went back there and said, hey, if you sign here, it's your office. I mean, it was just everybody was a winner. And everyone was a winner. But I still think my gosh, what a great diversification. When you're in real estate, the number one risk in real estate is that you don't have a tenant. And if you flew across Phoenix right now at the speed of light, you would think the number one franchise was space available because Amazon is killing retail. If there doesn't need to be a human involved, like when you buy, a computer or a laptop or a pair of shoes, it's all moving online because it has a longer selection. The selection is endless. And go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I actually wanted to ask you a question about that. You mentioned real estate. Do you think it's realistic for a guy like me coming out of school to want to be an own doc?
To be an own doc?
Exactly, to own my own real estate.
Well, I would say that you're supposed to buy low and sell high. And what all social animals do is they get caught up in the excitement of the high, and then they buy high, then it crashes, and then they get out low or broke or whatever. And this like right now, the stock market is, humans are interesting animals. So we all know we're aware of our existence, right? Okay, well, what's the opposite of that? What's it like for a turtle? Well, they're just aware of the objective reality of the present. I mean, they just have objective awareness of their presence. They only live in the presence. They don't know there's a past. They don't know there's a tomorrow. They just live in the present. But humans develop this thing where they can detach from the presence and they can start thinking. And that leads to daydreams and beliefs, and they create religions and governments and all these things that they believe in. In fact, do you know the only thing that everyone on earth believes in? I mean, like you take religion, well, there's 3,000 religions practiced today. And everybody who's religious, like my oldest sister's a nun, she doesn't believe in the other 3,000 religions. So she's an atheist to 3,000 religions except one. And so an atheist is basically a religious person minus one. But you know, their governments, like I really like the government of Singapore. I think it's a better class act than what I grew up in. I mean, cleaner streets. Japan, talk about the cleanest, nicest, logical environment I've ever been to in my life. I mean, you go to Japan and everyone comes home realizing they're a hillbilly, So,
Right.
so they're all different. But can you name the only belief that's completely in your imagination that is not, there's no objective factual observation in the present? I can't measure anything in the present about so many things, but you know what it is?
Is it afterlife or?
The only thing, an atheist doesn't believe in it. Like when Christopher Hitchens died, he didn't believe in afterlife, so not everyone believes that. But the only thing they all believe in is money.
Oh, right. You're right.
They believe that dollar is a store of value and it'll hold its value. I mean, they can believe or not believe in democracy to communism, religion to whatever they believe. They all believe in the dollar. I mean, they all believe in the dollar. Even when they found these terrorists that are against the United States, they still find sacks of U.S. dollars. So they hated America, hated everything about America except for the U.S. dollar.
Right.
Like, well, I kind of like you, Ben. I like that Benjamin you make. I like the green on it. So other than money, I think money is the only thing everybody believes in. But so right now, the stock market has lost all legs of anything still standing in reality. I can't trace anything they're saying. As long as you have 1 foot on the ground, I don't care if you're a ballerina and you're just standing on your big toe, I can still take all your words and trace it back to some math of some observations you see. I always tell my boys it's only right. A point is an idea. It takes 2 points for a line, 3 points for a shape. Everything you can see has a shape. And if it has a shape, geometry says there's a right angle in there somewhere. And so it's not right if I can't trace it back to a right angle. So they're believing all this stuff. And it's a bubble. And bubbles always get bigger than anybody thought. Bubbles expand longer than anybody ever thought because humans are capable of just mass delusion. But at the end of the day, objective reality will say that it's a weighing machine. It's a weighing machine of profits. And you just had 40 million Americans lose their job. And the international economy looks like shit for years to come. And you're getting new highs every day. No, that's actually crazy. So I wouldn't be in the stock market. I wouldn't be buying new stocks at these prices. And as far as what's going to happen to the economy, well, after, I graduated from high school in 80, that was the worst. 87 was Black Monday. That was like 100 days after I opened. The Y2K bubble popped in 2000 because everybody spent all their money getting ready for Y2K. So after Y2K, there were no sales for 90 days at Cisco, Microsoft, Intel, and all that. And so it just crashed. And then Lehman's Day was bad, but I think this is the mother of all the bad ones I've ever seen because you throw in a pandemic, which is really a world war, except we're fighting a virus. So the thing that the Buffett index, when I was at Creighton in 1980 taking business, that's where Warren Buffett lived, and he knew the head guy of business at Creighton, and he came over and talked to her class. And I love the Buffett index, where you take the market cap of all the stocks in the country and as a percent of the GDP. And all the stocks publicly traded on the Wilshire 5000 should be about the GDP. And when that starts going below the line to where all the stocks are about 70% of the GDP, the market's going to tear out and do a bull run. This is the highest anybody on earth has ever seen, and including Warren Buffett himself. It's at 171%. And when he diversified by investing $6 billion in Japan, Do you know what that means when you're the Oracle of Omaha and you say, for the first time in my life, I'm going to move some cash over to Japan? I mean, he's sold out of the airline stocks. He's basically, and he is not giving interviews. He's not talking. You know, this is the guy that loves the camera, loves to talk, loves to help and share. No one can hear from him. And then you hear all these dumb pundits telling you how dumb he is. And, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have $85 billion in your set? Because I'm not aware of your name. Tell me who you are, Mr. Billionaire. And then the dumb argument I'm hearing now is they're saying, well, if the United States, their deficit, which they've been adding $1 trillion a year. It doesn't matter which party you're in. One robbed the bank, one drove the getaway car. It's a binary star of filth and violence and corruption. But they'll sit there and say, well, America, their debt is only 1 year's GDP, and Japan's is 2 years. Really? Well, did you know the difference? In Japan
owns their debt. Yeah.
They own their debt, just like we owned all of our debt in World War II. When the government needed money, we bought all the bonds. And who owns our bonds? China is the biggest investor in our bonds. Wake up, America. So in answer to your questions, I think that value shoppers are going to have some great sales. There's going to be some great sales. So why would you want to buy a car, a building, or a dental office if it's July 1st when July 4th is the 4th of July clearance sale? And I think and the money's stacking up on the sidelines. I mean, I've seen it. And by the way, when I opened up my office, I got out of school May 11, opened up September 11th. Black Monday was like October. And the one thing I noticed, I was such a young, dumb kid, I couldn't figure out, is all these real estate, like the pad in my parking lot where my dental office is today, that was $600,000, and they had 4 pads, and they'd already sold the other one to Pizza Hut, Chase Bank, and Walgreens, and he marked it down to like $550, and I thought, $550? I mean, the economy, we just crashed. So I set him a bid for $185, and he got mad. And when he got mad, I thought, well, it's just a bid. It's an asking price. No one gets mad at Wall Street when they see a deal come, a buy order for your stock for less money. And I thought, mad, he's emotional. And so I just kept sending him every year I would send him the same number. And I opened up in 87, and I built that building. I mean, that was open on April Fool's Day, 94. And I don't remember how many years from 87 to 94, but I think it was about 5. So it probably would have been about 92. He said, if I get a call out of nowhere, if I came by your office right now, could you write me a check for $185? I said, yes. And I picked up 4 of them. But here's where I was dumb. So, I'm the first to admit, Humble Howie was the first. When someone tells you that I'm crazy, it's like, Howard told me he was crazy. So, this is not news from you. The other 3 I bought, my formula in my stupid head was, soon as they got to the double price, I'd give it to him. So this other one I bought for $75, he called me up, and it was, he said he'd give me $154. So I thought, oh my God, I doubled my money. He hung on to it for 3 more years and sold it to Dairy Queen for $600. So I realized that the decision to buy is equally as important as the decision to sell. But the one that it hurt is I down in the foothills, about 19th Avenue and Chandler. There was 8 acres there, and it was, there's no water, electrical. It was just raw land, and raw land you don't make any money off. It's like an alligator. It just takes an interest payment bite out of your ass every month, as opposed to buying a business that has cash flow. And this guy got rid of it, and it was 8 acres, and he sold to me for $150. And it wasn't even 6 months later. And this guy, I don't remember his name, John Early from California, called me up and said, you bought that for $150? I'll give you $300 for it. And I thought, holy moly, I just doubled my money. He hung on to it for 5 years until Phoenix put the 3.5-foot water pipe to an area and drew an electrical line, and it was ready to be developed. And he sold that for $8.5 million cash.
Oh my God. That's insane.
And so now when I hear old people say that your logic on the decision to purchase an asset probably is almost less important than the decision of when to sell your asset. And that's why guys like Warren Buffett aren't traders. They'll buy an asset like Coca-Cola and they'll write it out forever. This is a good company. It's a good metrics. They don't have to worry about selling unless something crazy changed. So in answer to your question, that was a very long-winded said. This is the time I would sell my car and take the bus. This is the time I would cash is king. Cash is king, and there is going to be a big sell coming sooner rather than later, but it'll definitely show up. There's going to be a sell, and I just don't think this is the time that you're not going to see Warren Buffett on CNBC or MSNBC. You're not going to. The cash is king, and everybody that dresses right and lives below their means is just they're just like I had a mansion. I mean, I had a big mansion. I'm out of that. I mean, as I'm looking at my house. I'm living in my mansion alone, and I have 4 one-ton air conditioners, and my water bill's $600 a month, and my yard man charges me $500 a month, and I'm like, I've never even walked into 4 of the bedrooms in the last year. This is insane. And of course, you keep it there because it's always fun when your boys all have their original bedroom because it was a grandchild trap. They're going to come back and bring their grandkids. So I just kept that thing purely as an evil grandchild trap. I knew I could trap and snare some of my 6 grandkids, but no, I want the cash. And so no, I think it's a time to build up your cash flow and sell off assets you don't need and get a big sack of cash. And let me tell you something about when you have the Berlin Wall fall, the Arab uprising, the breakout of World War I or World War II, or any of these economic collapses. No one ever predicts them, of the timing of them, but you know where it's headed. And we're in these are the most crazy times I've ever seen, politically, economically, racial. It's now gone from globalism, which delivered us so much, to now anti-global. These are strange times. So what I would do is I tell people that, it's a great thing being a dentist because let's say the worst case scenario happened and the economy just completely tanked. Well, if you're that old man on the ranch that can ride up your horse and pull out that toothache, you're still going to make some chickens and pigs. Somebody out there is going to give you something to fix them. So having the ability to work with your hands to give someone else something that they're willing to trade and barter chickens and pigs and gold coins for is great. Now, I'm not the sky is falling pessimist. I'm just a realist. I mean, it's just going to be a lot worse a couple of years from now than it was a couple of years ago. That's just the direction everything's going. Any final words for well, no, let's go back to you said Comfort Dental, which is not a DSO, but any other you said MB2, any other?
No, that's it.
Is that the main DSOs?
Those are the main ones in Phoenix. Thank you so much for having me, Howard. You've been an inspiration since day one of dental school, and I appreciate everything you've done for our community, and thank you for all you do.
And if any of our homies here in Arizona from AT Still, if they want to contact Ben, how do they contact Big Ben?
So anybody that's about to graduate dental school or that's looking at finding jobs, they can email me. My email is drbenbaranes@gmail.com. So DRBENBARANES@gmail.com. And I'm happy to help them and kind of identify red flags and not make the same mistakes I did.
And drop that email when we post this on YouTube. Drop that in the comments. That's a huge command. And my email is howard@dentaltown.com. And I swear to God, that's the only one I have, except for my Gmail account, which I had to have for YouTube, but it was howardfarran@gmail.com. But I've never checked it ever. But Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're just an amazing guy. And on behalf of America, thank you for joining our team. I always thought every immigrant should be met at the border with a dozen roses and a cake saying, gosh, thanks for joining our team. I mean, Well, that's the greatest compliment in the world, and that's what built America. I can't believe that America built on 500 years of emigration closed down Ellis Island. I hope whoever wins the election opens back up Ellis Island, but I'm sure the Americans would rather just shoot themselves in the foot and blame all their problems on everybody but themselves. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Howard.